Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. Today's guest is Dr. Doug Phillips. He is the executive producer of Discovering Alabama. He's also the host of that show. It's on PBS, I think. It's okay to talk about another network. I think it's okay, especially when it's PBS.
Yeah, they will appreciate it.
Thanks for coming over from Tuscaloosa and being with us.
It's my honor. Yeah,
Well, so how did you get this gig that you have? You're always out in the woods. I watch your show regularly. I've learned so much, and we're going to talk about some things that you've talked about on some of your shows. But how did you get to this point?
Well, this is kind of an interesting, humorous beginning to it. I was working on my PhD, and the professors complained that I needed to come out of the woods and learn to be professional. And I never did. And then one day they needed somebody to teach some outdoor programs. So primarily training teachers how to use nature, hands-on outdoors to make science come alive and geography come alive and all those things. And we did that for years. And the teachers one day suggested, you'll be doing this forever. We'll drop in the bucket, hitting these little groups of teachers. You need to start a TV show. So
that's how that happened.
Yeah. And the funny thing, people will appreciate, now that they can see me live, they'll appreciate this. I did not set out to be the host. It was my concept, but I hawked this idea around, Tommy. Trying to get a TV talent, somebody spiffy like you to be the TV star.
Well, thank you.
I was going to be the advisor.
That's what happened to me. Karen gave me that opportunity.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this was a long time ago, of course, and people would say, well, who would be interested in a television show about Alabama? And I heard this for a couple of years, and it finally irritated me. And I grabbed the camera guy and said, come on, damn it, we're going to do this. So that was a long time ago. And here we are.
Well, but before that, did you have an interest? Oh, you grew up hunting like Italian boys. We didn't do that kind of thing. You know, I never was trained to use a shotgun, how to hunt.
Well,
I hardly knew what a hammer was until I was like 18. So.
Oh yeah, I grew up way back in the wilds of Alabama, down a long dirt road. Thousands of acres of rivers and woods and farms and wildlife. I was carrying a double-barrel 12 at age 6. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah. Those were back in the days.
But what part of Alabama was that?
You'll have to get the Locust Fork River movie to see that story. Yeah. We returned to my old childhood home place, which is just the remnants of a fireplace now. But while I have a chance to make a plug, folks can go to discoveringalabama.org and check out all our shows, including that one, the Locust Fork River show. Yeah.
So is that up in Blount County?
Yeah, you spill the beans. Now they won't go get the movies.
Well, we have a water system in Alabama that I don't think people are aware of how grandiose it is as compared. Particularly, well, it is in and of itself, but as compared to the rest of the country. Oh, yeah. Can you expound upon that just a little bit here in this first segment?
Sure. Of course, I've been interested in, I grew up roaming the rivers and streams, and the Locust Fork being one of them as a child, and got familiar with this stuff as a young man. I was born at an early age, you know. And
you're good.
And I was wowed to learn years ago that Alabama had 70-something thousand miles of rivers and streams. And then in more recent years, the satellite data begins to come in, and now we realize we've got 100-something thousand miles of rivers and streams in Alabama. So that's the good news. The bad news is we've dammed up a lot of it. Damn it. And with that went some of the most richest, diverse aquatic fauna, invertebrates, snails, mussels, and things in the world. They were wiped out by that.
Gone forever?
Gone forever. But, you know, the impoundment created other kinds of habitat, and Alabama argues with Tennessee who's got the most fish species, but we're up there. Yeah. So, of course, what we advocate in Discovering Alabama is not damming up any more of them.
Well, do we need to? I mean, is it for power? Is that what that's
Well, interesting
about?
story about my home river, the Locust Fork. I had been thinking about doing that show for years. And I woke up at 3 a.m. one morning and said, I got to do it now. And I don't know what it was. I'm part Creek Indian, so maybe the old Indian spirit spoke to me. But we went and did that show, and it was broadcast. And 2 weeks after that, Birmingham Waterworks Board announced plans to dam up the Locust Fork River.
Oh,
And a lot of the local people.
That's a sensitive subject.
Birmingham
Waterworks Board.
Fortunately, a lot of local Blount County people and surrounding folks had seen that show and learned what a remarkable natural feature they had right there. And I got the call, Dr. Doug, you got to come up here and help us organize. And we did. Friends of Locust Fork River. They're still active. They still meet. And it took us a couple of years, but we got that impoundment stopped. And I'll tell you something funny.
When was that?
This was, it was back in the day again. That's why I'm getting gray. It was in the late 80s, I guess it was, 1980s. And the guy who kind of oversaw the Waterworks Board at the time, and I won't implicate him in the downfall of the dam project, but his name was Horace something, and we'll let it right at that. But one of the Friends of Locust Fork came up with a bumper sticker that said, "Frankly, Horace, we don't need a dam."
And with that, we're going to take a short break.
Great. And that funny story.
This is Our Issues Birmingham. Don't go away. We'll be back. And welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We're talking with Dr. Doug Phillips about the state of Alabama. And there's some things I would like to know about the state of Alabama that I think you probably have some knowledge about. How did we become the state of Alabama? What's the history of the state of Alabama? I know back in the 1500s, the Native Americans were here, but that would predate the state of Alabama.
True, yeah. Back in the 1400s, the quote original inhabitants were we got the Indian mounds at Moundville, and there were the mound building Indians period was just fading thanks to the Spanish and others coming in and bringing diseases. Wiped out most of those. Yeah, there was a cartoon in a New York magazine that had two Indian warriors standing up on a bluff with a big Spanish ship approaching the shore. One of them says to the other, let them land, what can it hurt? That's how it hurt.
They found out the hard way.
Yeah, but by the time, we celebrated Alabama's bicentennial, and yes, 2019. 1819, we transitioned from a territory, kind of an unestablished wilderness, to the state of Alabama. And at that time, we had the established tribes, Choctaw, Cherokee, Creek, my tribe, that had kind of claimed portions of Alabama. And
did they get along?
Well, they got along in ways because they for example, the Choctaw and the Creeks used the Cahaba River as kind of, you stay on that side and we'll stay on this side, But they swapped around a little bit too. And then, of course, Andrew Jackson and the Indian Removal Act. See, I'm still angry about that, being Creek Indian.
You're speaking of the Trail of Tears.
Right, right. And so Alabama began to be settled. In fact, one of the first settlement routes came through my old home territory up there in Blount County through at the Bear Meat Cabin was one of the first little trading posts that the settlers used coming through there. And we did 2 or 3 shows dealing with Alabama's 200-year statehood history, helping support the bicentennial celebration. Those are all, get the movies, people. They're loaded with history. But to make a serious point, every movie we do, we don't call them videos, by the way, because bringing the grand natural wonder and beauty of Alabama, you know. In fact, I hate to go into a school room and see the teacher using Discovering Alabama and they're all watching on a little screen. No, get a big screen. But we invariably make a point about where are we headed from here. These wild wonders you and I are talking about, and all these streams, still with great aquatic diversity. Well, we can speak to that more at length, but the concerns we have, I will divulge in Discovering Alabama, is how are we going to treat our lands and waters and wildlife for the future? And that's going to get challenging, you know. Yes, it is. The South's been the fastest growing region for some time now in the U.S., and it's coming our way.
So there's more coming.
There's more coming.
So post 1819, it just started to evolve. I know Birmingham's 1871, but we've had multiple capitals.
5 capitals. Get our movie, Alabama State Capitals. We traced the 5 of them and how they were located geographically, environmentally associated reasons. And you can also get, well, gosh, we just did one. You know, Tuscaloosa is where the university is home based. Its bicentennial was 2019 as well. So we did a movie on Tuscaloosa's bicentennial, and well, if it sounds like I'm hawking our movies, I am.
Well, it's okay, and you are, but it's okay.
Good,
It's perfectly all right. I think, isn't it, Karen?
Well, it's like we work ourselves to frazzle trying to do these shows, and then I get invited to come say what's in the shows. Say, no, get the show.
Well, this gets the word
I'm
out.
playing with you. I'm playing with you.
Yeah, I understand, but you know, I'm trying to understand Alabama that gets a bad rap
well,
nationally.
Well, we need to talk about that. Yeah.
Here's a forum.
Well, I used to ask our early teacher groups to close their eyes and think of Alabama. What is your image of Alabama? And I would get stuff like, well, Huntsville's up here, Montgomery's down there, you know, and Interstate's over here, and on and on. I say, okay, well, that is a roadmap image of your state, sort of. I mean, nothing necessarily wrong with that. You got to kind of have it in mind to get around. But I would unfold, and if you ain't seen it, get any one of our movies, the geological map of Alabama. That's another image of the state. And we have the greatest geological diversity of any state in the nation, except California maybe. They argue with us, but they're big states, you know.
Yeah, they're like 3 states.
Yeah. And, you know, on top of that remarkable geological diversity, Alabama's soils. We've got over 300 soil types, some of the best soils in the world. Now, what I'm telling you is going to counter the old image of Alabama as plantations and, you know, on top of the soils, we could overlay the forests of Alabama. 2/3 of the state is forest land. More tree species than any other state. Over 200 and something, over 70 different forest communities in Alabama. And overlay on top of that, what we were talking about, the rivers and streams, over 100,000 miles of aquatic habitats. And then think about the myriad niches for flora and fauna, plants and animals. You add it all up, and especially since satellite days, world-leading scientists are going, wow.
Look at that place.
One of the most naturally diverse places on earth is the state of Alabama.
When I come back from break, I'm going to talk about that diversity.
Okay.
This is Our Issues Birmingham. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. I'm Tommy Spina. I'm talking with Dr. Doug Phillips about the great state of Alabama that has been maligned historically and presently still. But we've got some great things to talk about, and one of those things is the geographical diversity that he just spoke about from our north side of our state all the way to the most pristine beaches that I've seen, and I have traveled a good bit, as any place in the world, are located 3 hours or 4 hours to the south of Birmingham. So and how do those things mesh together? So we start up north and we're in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. And then we end up at the Gulf of Mexico and we're in beautiful sandy shores.
Yeah,
How does that all tie in?
it's amazing how many people, there have even been some Alabama leaders who, I guess, spent their lives in South Alabama. They're so surprised when they find out we've got mountains.
Well, they call them hills in some places.
Well, they don't compare to the Rockies, but there was a time way back in geological history, supposedly the Appalachians were as tall as the Rockies, and they've eroded away. In fact, you love those beaches. The quartz that has formed by the collision of continents that gave the rise to the Appalachians, all the way from Maine to tail out here in Alabama. Over time, that quartz eroded, those quartz veins, and gives us that pristine, beautiful white sand beaches that we have here in Florida. I mean, you can go around the world and never find that kind of stuff. But Alabama's got 5 major physiographic/geological regions, from the Highland Mountain and rim down to the coastal plain is the lower part.
So it's a downhill putt, is what you're telling me.
Yes.
A long one.
Yeah, I got a friend who comes south to meet me when we're at a lodge down there. And I said, man, you made a pretty good time. He said, yeah, it was downhill all the way.
And it is, and you don't realize
That's true, yeah.
As I drive, you talk about just going outside and looking around, but just south of Montgomery, I find those rolling, what do you call them, hills?
Yeah.
Plains?
Well, the
I'm
Appalachian...
talking about Lowndes County. It's gorgeous.
Well, that's upper coastal plain, but it merges with the transition zone. The Highlands, which is the upper third or more of the state, is the last rocky territory extending from the Appalachians.
Which would include Birmingham.
It includes Birmingham. And the fall line is really a bending curve where that rocky terrain ends, about a third, halfway through the state. And that's where the history of Alabama, that's some of the first settlements were on that fall line because of waterfalls. It's the last line of significant waterfalls. After that, it's the coastal plain. And right as the coastal plain starts, we have what's called the Fall Line Hills. And that's a pretty good hill country there for a band. And then as that begins to settle out, you get the more gently rolling coastal plain territories.
In terms of being able to identify the descriptions you just geographically described for us, where are we talking about? South of Montgomery? Where are those things happening?
Well, no, the Fall Line Hills is a bit, actually they kind of do a strange fizzle thing right through the Montgomery area.
Okay.
They're much more west of Montgomery is a pretty good line of it all the way around through Tuscaloosa and west, and then you can see a little better of it on the other side of Montgomery. But you're right. That's about where you start to meet the more gentle. If you travel south out of Montgomery, it's a different kind of territory.
You can take your eyes off the highway and just look to your right or to your left.
Yes, you can. And unbeknownst to a lot of folks, even though it might look similar, it's composed of multiple kinds of ecoregions. And within each of those is a whole array of communities that sort of differ from region to region. And add it all up is why Alabama has, many experts will argue, the greatest natural diversity and biodiversity in the nation. Some are saying the hot spot for the world. And
So what benefit would that be other than it's being preserved for our use and enjoyment?
yeah, well, that does open the door to some philosophical, if not political kinds of conversations, right? And those can get complicated, of course. There are people who don't, what good is it if I can't use it? And then there's people who have a deep moral commitment to taking care of nature on its own. But that's another show, Tom.
Oh, we're going to do another show. We're just scratching the surface here, Dr. Doug.
Okay.
I interviewed my friend out of Etowah County, Doug G.
Yeah.
And I learned that we had a land bank. I had no idea we had a land bank. Yeah. And we are constantly acquiring real estate, for lack of a better word, to preserve and to maintain that which you're so passionate about. We are going to do another show because this is not enough talk with you. Will you come back?
Well, let's see.
If I beg you?
Let me think about it. Okay.
He'll be back. Thanks for being with us. It's been a great chat and great to meet you too.
Honor.
This is Our Issues Birmingham. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
I've taken 25 selfies in the last 10 minutes.
26.
Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.